If we could convince you, because we know it so profoundly, that the abundance is there for you, you've just got to unlock yourself to it. It's unlocked to you. Your inner being is aware, and there are all kinds of things that you start to do that your inner being is guiding you about, but you don't hear the guidance. You don't have awareness of it because you're on this track. This is what I've always done. This is how I always think. This is the way it's supposed to be. My parents didn't have any money. Nobody I know has any money. There's no inheritance for me. I'm working too hard. People are taking more than their fair share. Nobody gets me. In other words, there's this momentum that's going that you're keeping active that is working against you. So you want to activate things that work for you. And it takes a little while for them to catch on. But after a little while, everything else just feels weird. It won't be long before it'll be hard for you to remember not having enough money. It'll be hard for you to remember. And sometimes you'll be around somebody else who's complaining, and you'll be sort of tempted to be there for them by explaining how hard it was for you. But then you'll just activate more of that and throw more resistance on your trail and slow your own progress a little bit, because you don't ever have to do that. It's logical that you might, but you don't ever have to do that. So let's not try to find the rightness or the wrongness in the realness or in the game. Let's instead, just for a little while, decide that path of least resistance means path of most allowance. And what is the path of most allowance leading you to? Your inner being, who is focused upon everything you want and got an avalanche of what you want flowing to you. The path of most allowing, your connection to your inner being and all the things that your inner being is focused upon, that law of attraction is gathered up and it is ready to turn into things in your experience in the most extraordinary ways. Esther got on an airplane the other day on Southwest. There were 3 across. She sat on the aisle. Michelle sat on the aisle across from her. She's traveling with Michelle. So fun to travel with Michelle, because Michelle just expects things to go well, and they always do. And they sat down. Esther had 2 extra seats, and she thought, they say the plane is full, but it isn't always. And she thought, sometimes an empty seat sits next to me. And then she thought, and sometimes not. And she just decided to be non-resist about it. Whatever it is, it is. I bought this seat. Whatever happens in those seats will be just fine. So she sat there. The plane filled up. Pretty much filled up. And then a couple suddenly is standing there wanting to know if they can sit there. And Esther said, of course. And she got out of her seat and, here, let me hold that for you, while they got in. It was like they weren't really that comfortable or accustomed to flying. And so Esther's wanting to make it as easy as possible for them. You really can't get into your seat holding everything and that cup of coffee too. And so they got into this seat, and not much to say. The woman was very interested in managing the moment. She's diligent. She likes to make things happen. She works hard at it. She talked really a lot. The people on the airplane were probably happy to see Esther and her new friend go, because they talked the whole flight. Not a long flight, but they talked the whole flight. And her husband just said, yes, yes, if she addressed him. Those were the only words, apparently, that he knows at all. And so Esther said, why were you in San Antonio? They live in Northern California. Why are you in San Antonio? Our daughter lives here. Our daughter lives in San Antonio. And then she began to explain the story of the needs that her daughter has, an older girl with some inability to really do things for herself, and up against a wall because she's got to move out by the end of the month, which was 10 days away. And they'd come in to help her, but they only stayed 3 days, and they're getting out of Dodge, Esther could feel. They were in relief mode, but Mom's still in stress mode because things aren't going well. And it's so active in her vibration. Her asking was so strong. But before Esther had heard that story, Esther had already mentally made a long list of positive aspects in her mind about this animated woman. Such good vocabulary, and so eager about talking and willing to open up to Esther a little bit, and obviously caring very much about what was going on with her. And Esther just really, for no logical reason really, fell in love with this lady, this diligent, hardworking, wanting to fix it, driving everybody nuts lady. And Esther thought, I can't explain to her about Abraham. This trip isn't going all the way around the world. And it would take that long. So Esther didn't explain anything to her. Esther just listened to her. And as Esther was listening to her, she wants to live in this area. Well, it's an area not far from where Esther lives. And she doesn't drive, so she needs a bus stop close by. And there are lots of them around there. And as Esther listened, she said, well, I kind of know that area. And then all of a sudden, a download into Esther's mind. Path of least resistance opened right up to her. The woman had activated a desire within Esther. Esther's inner being is aware of what's going on. And Esther says, I have a friend. I bought a house from her. She's really, really nice. And she doesn't deal with rentals, but she's really a good resource for information. Here's her number. Give her a call. Well, Esther arrived in Phoenix, and before she went to bed that night, that call had been made. And Esther's friend said, she's also an artist and a real estate person, my studio mate has a place for rent in the area that she's looking for at the price she can afford, and she's gonna go look at it in the morning. And then Esther's friend, who's texting her, says, thank you for sending sweet person to me. And Esther thought, oh man, things are always working out for everybody. In other words, things are always working out for everybody. And Esther had an awareness of something wonderful, but Esther didn't have any of the what, where, who. Esther just received a little piece of an idea, which she relayed. And then off it went. And by the next morning, the place had been seen, the contract had been signed, the deal is done, the parents are happy, the girl is on her bus route living in the neighborhood where she wants to live. How is that? And we say, how can it not be? How can it not be when there are billions of you, many of you cooperative components to one another, even though you don't want to be and don't know that you are? And the law of attraction still working things out for you because you deserve it, because you're worthy, because it's supposed to go that way, because you have desire. And your inner being, source energy, what man wants to call God, is not saying, oh, wait. I know you want it, but how are you going to prove worthiness to it? In other words, how much suffering are you willing to do? Well, humans do so much suffering, they pinch themselves off from goodness, and then they don't feel worthy, and then they're not expecting of good things, and then they're mad at anybody who gets good things, and then they're mad at everybody who's not living exactly the same way they are. Round and round and round it goes unnecessarily, because when you ask, it is given. 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 Every time, no exceptions ever. The question is, when it is given, what are you doing? Worrying. I'm mad. I'm jealous. I'm frustrated. I'm worried. That's throwing the sand on the trail. That's the stuff you do that doesn't let it flow. You got to find some way to feel different. If stuff like that would work out for me, Abraham, I would feel different. I promise you. Just give me some good stuff and I will feel good. We say that's conditional. And the law of attraction is responding across the board magnificently, perfectly to the vibrational frequency. Otherwise, this universe would be chaotic. But it isn't. It's in perfect balance all the time. It's in perfect balance all the time, no matter how it looks to you. It's in perfect balance. Some sports, she does not like arbitrary refs. She has a front row seat, and if you look real close, you'll see her, come on here, ref. She can see. She's right there up front. He stepped out. Ref didn't see it. That was a foul. Ref didn't see it. That wasn't a foul. Ref thought he saw it. Physical humans are arbitrary. And so you don't trust. But the law of attraction isn't. And your inner being isn't. In other words, there's fairness because you are worthy and you get what you're offering vibrationally. Do you feel the law of attraction is your friend? Yes. Do you feel that it's inevitable? The way you make things happen is by letting them happen, by understanding that when you ask, the momentum is underway. And so it's a different mindset. You have to accept that, like when you throw something up, you don't have to propel it to go down. It's naturally going to follow that law of gravity. And when you have a desire, it's naturally going to follow the law of attraction. And when you launched it and your inner being got hold of it, there's a powerful gathering of cooperative components to it. And if you are not offering resistant thought, then you are one of those non-resistant cooperative components that's being called to it, and that's that momentum and that's that traction. So this sometimes feels like a weird answer to a question. Just don't do that thing that you do, and what you want will happen. Just don't do that questioning it, trying to justify it, trying to explain it, trying to compare it to others, trying to make anybody else understand. Focus on being non-resistant so that everything about you can rendezvous with everything about what you're asking for. That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Expecting activates that desire about wanting to figure it out and wanting to attract. It's about worthiness. It's because when you feel like it can come to you and like you want it to come to you and like it is coming to you. So if we could zap you with something, it would just be such a sense of worthiness that you just never doubt again that because you ask for it, it's coming. And like the seed that you put in the ground, and you can't see any evidence of its evolution, there's still awareness that something is going on. And you don't need to see the evidence. You have awareness that it is there. And so what we're talking about is the difference between offering my vibration because I'm observing and just sensing, knowing, because my inner being knows. Humans in the religious sense call that faith. Can't see it, but I sense it. But you got to practice that, because there's something so compelling for most humans about living in an environment where you're offering most of your vibration in response to what you are observing. And if it's not there to observe yet, then it's kind of a guessing game for so many of you, but it does not need to be. Because there is a knowing that is within you that you can tune yourself to. Some years ago, really, really long time ago, when Jerry and Esther first got together, and Esther was always kicking her shoes off. First thing she'd do when she'd get in the house, kick her shoes off and off she'd go somewhere. And one day Jerry said to her, "Pretend like you live with a blind person." Well, she knew what he meant. Don't leave things for me to trip over. But she also knew him to be the most aware person. He was aware all the time. One day they were on a highway. It was a 2-lane highway. He was driving in the left lane to turn left. Not a really busy highway, but a big, wide, new highway. And his light, his arrow was green. Time for him to go, his turn. And he just sat there instead. And a car going about 120 miles an hour came flying up behind him, passed on that side, and off it went. And Jerry said, "I can't exactly say that I knew that guy was coming, but I couldn't make myself go even though I had the green arrow." That's awareness. It's an awareness of things that aren't spelled out for you by everything else. What that is, that awareness is alignment, broader view. Aware of what you ask for, every bit of it. Aware of where you stand in relationship to everything you want. We think you've got it. There isn't anything that we know right now that you don't know. So just be playful, have fun with it. We're appreciating your being here and what you have caused to happen. You're important to this world. And there is great love here for you.